Hello crafty friends, my name is Jessica and welcome to my channel. This is my first video on YouTube and I'm so happy that you're joining me for it. This is the card we're going to be making, a simple ink blended background with a die cut panel on top. So let's get started. I start off by using a A2 panel size of my favorite ink blending paper, which is Simon Says Stamp 130 pound Mega Ultra cardstock. It is the absolute best for ink blending. Whether it's oxides or dyes, it's my #1 go-to, and it's got a lot of weight to it, so it feels really great even for die cutting. I love how the color combo turns into candy corn here for a brief moment before I add the purple. I'm not a candy corn fan, but if you are, this would be a great combo for Halloween cards in October. I do also want to mention that I have 2 sets of brushes. I use one set for my Oxide inks and one set for my dye inks. I found over time that when I was doing the ink blending out of both types of ink that the brushes were getting stiff and cakey, even though I was wiping them off really well in between. I just didn't like that. So I did buy 2 sets of brushes, one for my dyes and one for my oxides. I love this distress combo. Let me know your favorite distress ink combos in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your favorites are, and maybe someday I'll use them. Gorgeous, gorgeous sunrise. All right, next we're going to go ahead and get the die cuts and glue them all together. I did take the time to just cut them out in advance. I find that when I have my supplies kind of ready to go, it helps me creatively to stay on track and not kind of like diverge into something else. So I went ahead and cut 2 of them out of Neenah Solar Crest 80 pound. And I'm gluing them together here, trying to use a little bit of liquid glue. I tend to go overboard, so I try to minimize that as much as possible. As you can see, I got it all over my workspace, but I love that eraser. It does a great job getting it off. But I did the 2 card panels out of the 80 pound, and then I'm topping it with this Tonic Nouveau matte honey colored cardstock. It is so rich with these color combos, and I'm just really excited how well those look together. As I said, I don't add a lot of glue, so I'm just kind of briefly touching in the larger areas, not making sure I go onto where it's going to leak out, and then using the panel itself to kind of push against it to line them up on the sides. I did get a little liquid glue there on the top corner, so I tried to remove it. This acrylic block is another lifesaver in my craft room. I do not use it for stamping, but its #1 goal is to sit on top of die cuts and make sure that they glue together really well, and it does a great job at it. I found this blackberry colored cardstock in my stash, so I thought that would look really good, kind of help bring that Seedless preserves up a little bit, give it a nice little purple punch. And this is a Simon Says Stamp die, the Just Because. I went ahead and I'm going to do 1 layer because later on you'll see I'm going to add a shadow die cut around it. And so I kind of just kept the 1 layer. I didn't feel like it needed to have the extra dimension added to it. I did find that you can use that eraser on the mirror cardstock. It was such a big help. I had some liquid glue kind of glued on in some spots, so I just used that little eraser and it came right off. Great little tip. Who knew an eraser would be your best friend in the craft room? Here I am. I found some ultra mega weight vellum in my stock, so I went ahead and I'm going to use that for the shadow die just to kind of break it up. I felt like the Just Because was getting lost with a delicate dye background, so I thought the vellum would be a nice touch to kind of help pop it up a little bit. Originally, I was going to use some ink blending and kind of have an ombre sentiment, but that wasn't quite working. That blackberry and Seedless preserves was just a little too close. So instead what I did is I'm going to do like a dipped gold look with my favorite gold embossing powder, which is Simon Says Stamp Antique Gold. And so I just used the embossing ink pad to create a bottom half, dabbed it on there, and then I sprinkled my embossing powder on. And this is what I like to call my trash brush. I kind of use it for these like little odd and end tasks, but I'm just knocking off some of the powder so that it takes away that harsh edge that the ink pad created and makes it a little bit more organic and a little bit more free-spirited, as you might say. I went ahead and heat set that off camera, and now I'm going to go ahead and start assembling the card. I didn't like how the panel was smaller than an A2 sized panel. And so what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to glue it off to one side and then trim it down. I didn't want to like trim the background too short to begin with because I don't do very good with math. So instead I thought this would be easier to go ahead and glue the panel and the die cut together and then use some scissors to trim it afterwards. Like I said, I don't try to hit every single area that needs to be glued. I try to focus on making sure that all the larger areas have a little dollop on them so that it's adhered as much as possible that way. Oh, there's that block. Love it. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue the sentiment. The trick with vellum is you want to make sure that you don't over glue, and I obviously put way too much glue on the back of this die, which is not something I normally do, but I got a little distracted, I think. So you'll see that it kind of squeaks out the edge. The nice thing is this vellum is a heavier weight vellum, so it doesn't really show you the extra glue that a lighter weight might show. Now I'm just going to trim out the panel. A trick when you're trimming out things like this that you want to make sure that you can't see the cardstock underneath is kind of angling your scissors and cutting kind of at 45 so that the paper underneath the die is cut back a little bit. That's my a tip that I like to do so that it doesn't show when you glue it down. Here I decided I'm going to pop it up. This is a Big Mama foam roll tape that I've had for probably like over a year. And at one point I thought I was getting low, so I bought a new one, and clearly you can see that I am not low. I don't even know what I was thinking, but it is the first roll that I've ever owned. So I was very misinformed with that. But now I know, and I have extra if I ever run out. The only thing I don't like about this foam tape is you can't tear it. I think there was a formula before this one where you were able to tear it. This one does not. It gets really stretchy and never actually tears apart. So that is the one downfall. I did wish I was able to just tear it with my hands versus my scissors because it does gum the scissors up over time. I do have a pair of scissors I dedicate to that more gummy mess, but it's still not fun to deal with. All right, we're going to pop that background up. I did like the fact that it had that white border on it. It helps bring that die cut up and really showcase the beauty of that paper rose die. Oh, found some more glue, just using that eraser to kind of clean up a little bit. So the white border wasn't a negative for me. I really liked that. It helped offset that card. This is me trying to figure out where am I going to put this die cut. This is part of my process. Sometimes it takes me longer than others, but I just kind of move it around until my eye is visually pleased. And then I figure out that's where I want to put it, so that go ahead and glue it down. I'm using the existing glue dot to put the new glue on. This is a way to help keep your glue from showing through your vellum, is to use the existing ones that you've already have so that they don't show through. Again, with the acrylic blocks, I do not use them for stamping. I use my Misty or another stamp platform. I use the acrylic blocks to help me glue things together. So while they're a good addition to the craft room, it's not necessary if you have a Misty. I'm sorry that I didn't pull the plum bobs away. I was going to use them, but then I decided that the gold I liked better. So I apologize, but I did not use the purple ones. But I did end up using the gold, and this is me fiddling with them, trying to figure out where to put them all. And then this finishes the card for today, and I appreciate you guys coming and joining with me on this journey, and I hope that you return. Be sure to hit subscribe and the bell icon so that you're notified when I have new cards up and when I post my next video. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.